Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Season 1, Episode 5 is called In the Name of the Mother, and personally it lived up to my expectations. Looking at some of the reaction online, it's been a little bit divisive, certainly more than the other episodes. There's definitely a different vibe to it compared to the other episodes, but I thought the fight was good. The fight concentrated on Dunk, as it should. It's Dunk's story. I enjoyed the flashback as well. Obviously, we start where the last episode ended. Baelor has joined Dunk's Seven, and we start with a pep talk from him. Not only is he the heir to the throne, the hand of the king, it also seems like he's the most experienced in tournaments as well. He just kind of naturally takes charge of it. The least experienced are Raymond and Dunk. The prospect of going into battle makes Raymond vomit, which Dunk observes, and it makes him vomit as well. And it seems like vomit is the bodily function of choice of this episode. Baelor discusses the tactics that they'll use during the fight. On the other side, there are 3 Kingsguard. They can't attack Baelor in any way. He intends to use that to his advantage. Robin Riesling asks, "Is that honourable, Your Grace?" And Baelor says, "The gods will let them know." I think Robin Riesling has had maybe 6 or 7 lines in 3 episodes, and I really like the character now. He really gets straight to the heart of any dilemma. The trial begins, and Dunk is scared. He doesn't move at first, but eventually kicks the horse into gear. He doesn't have a great start. The person he's riding against is Aerion, who puts his lance straight into Duncan's side. Duncan falls off his horse, and we get into a flashback. We see a younger Dunk, maybe, 10 years, 8 years before, perhaps something like that. I'm not sure of the chronology. I guess we'll have to work that out as seasons go on. Dunk is on a battlefield, but the battle is long over. In the distance, we can see the Red Keep, so it looks like we're somewhere south of King's Landing. Dunk is basically looting corpses, or a guy who will be a corpse pretty soon, at least. Is this the Battle of the Redgrass Field, the first Blackfire Rebellion? Later on, somebody says the rebellion is over. The Redgrass Field was the last battle of that rebellion. As Duncan is working, trying to find something to sell to make some money, the person he thinks is a corpse starts moving. Horrifyingly, Dunk's reaction is to try and finish him off, which his friend Rafe is unhappy about. They should be able to ransom him back to his family if he's still alive. We don't get to find out who this is. We get a bit of a look at the sigil. Maybe it was a tower, maybe like the Frey sigil perhaps. I don't know, I'm just kind of making stuff up there. So basically Dunk, he lives in Flea Bottom in King's Landing and he robs corpses to make money. But he and his friend Rafe don't want to do this forever. They're trying to get together enough money to go to the free cities, to go to Essos. Dunk says that maybe now the Blackfire Rebellion is over, perhaps things in King's Landing will get better. But Rafe says no, everybody always wants revenge. She's talking about the Targaryens and the Blackfires. I wonder if this is foreshadowing. Will Aerion want revenge in later seasons? Once they get back to King's Landing, they sell what they looted and they have 2 silver stags. This should be enough to buy a ticket on a ship to Essos. Unfortunately, the next day, when they go to buy the tickets, they find that the prices have doubled. They're stuck in King's Landing and they need to plan what to do next. This is when they bump into Alistair. Alistair is a gold cloak, part of the police force of King's Landing, or maybe an ex-gold cloak perhaps. He looks pretty dirty and sweaty and nasty, so it's not really clarified what his position is. But in any case, he's clearly well known to both Rafe and Dunk. Their relationship is very antagonistic, and it escalates to the point where Alistair kills Rafe. Once Rafe is dealt with, Alistair and his friend look at Dunk, and they're going to deal with him next. This is the time where Ser Arlan and Dunk first meet. Arlan bursts into the room, drunk and puking, and kills the other 2 men. Dunk is horrified at what's happened to his friend Rafe, but he decides that perhaps Ser Arlan is going to be his future. He follows Ser Arlan out of the city, and while the old guy is asleep, has a look at all his stuff, like his sword, for example, and the helmet. I'm not sure, but I think perhaps the helmet was on a grave. So perhaps it's suggesting that Sir Arlan fought in the battle, which was the Battle of the Redgrass Field, and his squire died there, and that's why he's looking particularly drunk. So the next day, Sir Arlan leaves the city completely and follows him at a distance. So we get to see this montage of Arlan traveling around, drinking. In a voiceover, there's this one particular scene, and while we see this montage, there is Arlan shouting in some language. Maybe it's Valyrian, perhaps. I don't really know. I haven't been able to find anything on the internet yet. I checked the subtitles when I was watching it, and there was nothing on there. So I'm really curious as to what that language that he was shouting in actually was. But eventually, Dunk collapses, and Arlan tells him to get up. And this is where we jump back to the present. Once Duncan gets knocked off his horse, we see the fight just through Dunk's point of view. So there's lots of other stuff going on, but basically it's like a one-on-one Dunk versus Aerion. Would it have been nice to see all the other jousting? Would it have been fun to see Raymond and Stefan fighting each other? Yeah, it would, but that's not what the story is really about. It's about Dunk and Aerion and their problems with each other. It's a really well choreographed fight. I love the sound design as well. Like I say, it's basically one-on-one, but occasionally another of the participants will go in, like Dunk will get knocked over, or Aerion will get knocked over, or someone will bump into them. Dunk's really big, and he just like batters the crap out of Aerion pretty much, and Aerion withdraws his accusation. Yes, you could make the complaint that it's a bit too focused, just one-on-one. But personally, I wouldn't want to see 30 minutes of just action. I don't think there's enough story to justify 30 minutes of action there. So once Aerion has withdrawn his accusation, Raymond and Pate come and get Dunk, and Dunk's pretty beaten up, even if he's won, and they check his injuries. They have a look at where Aerion's lance went into his side, and it turns out that he's kind of going to be okay there. Dunk is thinking about other people, like he always does. He asks if anyone has died. It turns out that both of the Humphreys have died, like the guy who jousted with Aerion a couple of episodes ago, and his brother-in-law, who's also called Humphrey. And that's the point at which Baelor walks in. And Dunk sees Baelor, and he goes over to Baelor and he says, I want to be your man, which I guess means he wants his protection. So he's worried about the revenge aspect, I guess. So like Rafe said earlier, nothing is ever finished. I guess he's worried that Aerion won't accept the result in some way. So he wants Baelor's protection there. And Baelor, he's not explicit about it. He says the realm needs good men, and then he touches Dunk on the shoulder. I guess could imply that he's offering Dunk his protection. He changes subject. He says he needs to take off his helmet. He asks Raymond for his help, and Raymond asks for Pate's help because there's something wrong with the helmet. And Baelor says he's feeling a bit weird, like his fingers feel like they're made of wood. And they take his helmet off, and basically there's a big chunk of his skull missing there. So yeah, Baelor dies. That's really sad. The hope of the realm. He's finished. I think Bertie Carvel has been fantastic as Baelor Breakspear. It's a shame that we can't see him again, but this is the Westeros universe, I guess. Yeah, what a great episode. It's definitely the episode where they invent the most stuff. So Rafe, for example, is mentioned by name in the books. Alistair, I think Alistair is a new character. And the exact details of how Dunk and Arlan met, I believe it was in Flea Bottom. We haven't seen that level of detail in the books. So whether it was made up by the showrunners or whether it's based on George R.R. Martin's input, I'm not really sure. I think there was enough room in the episode for this. So I liked the balance between the flashback and the fight. I don't think you could have done more with the fight, or at least not in a way that made it Dunk centric, not in a way that kept it relevant to the kind of story it is. I thought the sound design was excellent. For example, at one point we hear Stefan shouting Raymond's name, but we don't really see him. I really like how they acknowledge that Dunk is physically injured, like there's something wrong with his hearing at some point because he's just been battered around so much, and we hear it from his point of view. Yeah, it was Dunk centric. It kept Ser Duncan the Tall as the main character, and I liked that. And I liked the how can you put it? So history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. Rafe has an unfortunate incident and dies, and then Baelor has an unfortunate incident and dies, and it affects Dunk really badly. So just one episode left, going to be a classic sort of Game of Thrones thing. So the penultimate episode is where the WTF moment happens, and the last episode is going to be the fallout. Thanks for watching.